Hi, welcome to Sumery P. Today I've got a step-by-step video on how to make this Italian Easter cake known as Pastiera Napoletana. I probably haven't said that correctly, but it's crossed between a cheesecake and a rice pudding wrapped in wrapped in pastry. And it's what the women of Naples make just before Easter. They take 3 days to make it. I'm going to show you in 1 day, and I'm going to swap it out and do it with spelt flour and oat milk. So if you'd like to see the Italian Easter cake known as Pastiera Napoletana, come with me and let's see. So step one, we need to do the Grano Cotto, which is it's like a rice, but it's a grain. I bought a huge jar of this last year for Easter, never got to make it. It's readily available in Italian supermarkets or places where they sell Italian delicacies, or you can get it on Amazon. It's like a grain, like a wheat berry, which is kind of the consistency of porridge. I have read on the internet that the northerners in Italy use arborio rice, but I'm going to show you the original way with Grano Cotto. I've got half of the jar here, which is 250 grams. So I'm going to pop this into the pot. Then I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon. Not completely necessary, but I love cinnamon in everything. And then we've got 1 cup or 250 mils of milk. So the traditional way is whole milk, but I don't drink whole milk, so I'm doing it with oat milk. So we just need to add an extra little bit of twist, a bit of a lemon peel. So I'm just going to peel off a slice of lemon peel. We just simmer it for about 20 minutes to half an hour so it looks like a thick porridge. And like porridge, you can't really walk away from it. You need to stir it. So I'm going to set my timer over here for 20 minutes. So our wheat grain or Grano Cotto is all cooked, and I'm just going to remove the lemon peel from the pot. And I'm just going to transfer it to a bowl so I can pop it into the fridge once it cools down. And ideally, this is best to make it and chill it overnight. You could leave it in the fridge for up to about 2 days. What we're going to do today is just chill it for 2 hours. So I'm just going to rest this to one side and cover it and pop it in the fridge. So next step, I'm just going to show you how I grease my tin. So I've got a springform tin in 2 parts, and just got a used butter wrapper. My mum's tip is save your butter wrappers and you can grease your cake tins. And I've got just a square piece of baking paper. So I'm just lining the base of my springform with the paper, popping the ring on. Like that. And then I'm going to grease the edge. And this just ensures that the pastry doesn't stick to the sides. So this is a 24 centimetre springform tin or 9 inch. So we're going to pop that to one side. We need to start making the pastry. So I've got everything measured and ready to go. So in this large bowl, I've got 250 grams of white spelt flour, roughly 2 cups, but you can swap it out and use regular flour. So we're going to use some chilled butter just to mix through this. So I'm just going to grab it from the fridge. So I've got 125 grams of pre-cubed unsalted butter, which is roughly 1 stick if you're in the US. And I'm going to remove my ring. And we're just going to add this into the bowl. You can do this on your stand mixer with a paddle attachment, but I find it's nice to pop your hands in, but you just use your fingertips and you slowly squeeze the butter and then combine it with the flour until it makes like little breadcrumbs. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's well worth the effort because you get a better result. I think you do anyway. If you've clicked on for the first time, thank you for clicking on, and maybe you want to consider subscribing and hit the thumbs up if you're liking my video. I'm doing 3 videos a week at the moment. I am doing mainly 2 baking videos a week and 1 savoury video, which is usually a vegetarian what's for dinner, is a new series that I've just started. But if you've got any tips or ideas on what you'd like me to film, pop a comment in the notes below. Most of the large lumps of butter are gone. So now the next step is we need to add some sugar. So I've used a couple of different recipes from the internet and kind of morphed it into my own. So one of them is a lady called Benedetta, an Italian lady, and another website is Food 52. So I've tweaked it and used my own flour, and I've lowered the sugar content. So This is the pastry from Food 52's recipe, but I've lowered the sugar. So that's 50 grams of icing sugar or a third of a cup. And they had 3/4 of a cup or 100 grams. So if you like it super sweet, add more sugar, but I've lowered it because I don't like too much sugar. And in here, we've got 1 whole egg plus an egg yolk. So that goes in as well. And then the original recipe was 1 whole zest of a lemon, but I've got half of a zest here and I don't like wasting, so I'm just going to use half of the zest into my pastry. And then if you find that the pastry is not moist enough, you can add a little bit of chilled water, because when you're making pastry, so much depends on the flour you use, the humidity of the room, where you live, so often you have to use your eye. And I learnt recently, using your eye to cook is what the Italians do. It's a very Italian way of style of cooking. And this is the messy part because you get it all over your fingers. It's like doing Play-Doh. So just the trick to pastry is you don't want to overheat it. So you want to work quickly and just use the fingertips but not the whole of your hand. But I don't think we'll need any extra liquid because this is quite moist and it's sticking to my fingers. So I have a piece of plastic wrap that I cut off earlier. So I'm just going to pop the dough in there, squish it down a little bit so it forms a disc, and then wrap it up. And we just need to chill this in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. So I'm going to leave that in there for an hour and then we'll do the next step. Okay, the next step for our Italian Easter cake, we need to whip up these egg whites. So I've got the 3 egg whites. So they're nice and fluffy now. So I'm going to put them to one side. Grab another bowl. This recipe uses lots of bowls, so my apologies. So now we need to make the ricotta part of the filling. So I've got the 3 egg yolks already mixed up together. Just going to grab a little spatula. Then we've got 1 tub or 250 grams of ricotta cheese, and we've got 250 grams of caster sugar. So I'm going to just combine those. We'll fold in these egg whites. You can either do it in half, but I'll just put them all in today. And you can add a little bit of extra cinnamon into this mix. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. Just going to do another little half a teaspoon of cinnamon, just a little sprinkle. I should have measured that, but I'm being very Italian. And I've got this orange blossom water, and I'm going to do a tablespoon of that. You can do less if you don't want the full citrus flavour, but I love orange. Now, my Italian teacher told me that there's the original Italian way of doing it is with this floral essence, which is like called, I think it's Millefiore, but I didn't have that in the house and I didn't want to go and buy it just for one recipe. And I already had the orange blossom water, and there was quite a few recipes on the internet with that. So that's what I went with. So almost folding this in, but before I finish folding it, I'm going to add in this Grano mix, which I think I've done the wrong step. I should have done this before the egg whites. It better be fine. That's what they say. It'll be fine, Sue. I should have mixed that with the ricotta. So I think I've just messed up my recipe here, but this is what not to do. If you follow my recipe at home, put the grano in first before you fold in these egg whites. So it's combining fine. So I've got some candied peel here, which I've finely chopped up, and it's like a combination of candied orange peel and lemon peel and citron, which I got at a wholesale food place. So I'm going to put a lot in because I like it. So I'm putting in 2 tablespoons, but you can put in only 1. So I'm just going to fold that in as well. And then that's all of our filling ready to put into our pie base. So as I said in the intro, it's like a cheesecake collides with a rice pudding, wrapped up in a pastry. So let's pop that to one side. And I'm going to make some room and we're going to start rolling our pastry. Now the dough's a bit hard. So what I want to do, this is a 23 centimetre tin. So I want to try and make this at least 25 centimetres. Oh, actually, silly me, before I start, I needed to divide this into 3, so I need to keep some for the top. So let's reverse. I'm going to grab a plate, put some flour in it. Let's weigh it. So I'll keep 145 for the top, and I think that'll be enough. So let's just make this more. I even bought a new tool for this recipe. I've got my little cutter, pastry cutter, to do the fancy top. So I'm doing it to the biggest ring, which is on this mat. It's actually 30. But whatever I've got left over, I'll trim off and I'll use for my top. Okay, so now we'll grab our tin. I'm going to roll this dough back onto the rolling pin and then flip it over into my prepared tin. It's quite unusual doing a pie in a cake tin. I've never done it before until this recipe, but it kind of worked all right in the end. So we've just got a little bit too much on this side, so I'm going to trim that off. And then I can save that for my strips on the top. A bit hard for you to see what I'm doing. I've just trimmed that as I put it in there. So I'm just making sure it's kind of like into the grooves. And if there's any high remaining bits, I'm just going to trim it. The first time I did this, it looked really rustic, but then once it was all baked, it came out fine. So I didn't really have to worry. So pie making is very forgiving. Even if you think it looks terrible, just don't worry, just keep going, and it kind of sorts itself out in the oven. Where I added a little bit. It might be a bit short on that side. And hopefully when we pour this mix in, so this ricotta mix just gets poured in now. And then we need to make our strips for the top. So just set that aside. So I've got that dough that I had before. So I'm just going to make sure I've got flour on my board here. Add a bit more to the rolling pin. So we're going to do strips on a diagonal. So we need about 3 or 4 strips for the top. And I bought a special tool with a crimped edge, so it looks like that. So it can look like the Italian ladies. So I'm just going to cut thin strips. And look, they don't have to be perfect, because once it's baked, it doesn't really matter. So now we grab our tin back. Just need to make some room. And we just lay them across the top. Just need a little one down that side. I'm just going to zoom you in so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now we need to go not straight, we need to go on a diagonal, because that's what I got told. So I'm going to do that way, because it's a long one. It's quite delicate because the mixture that I'm laying it on top of is quite runny. So it feels like it's not going to work, but it kind of just does its thing in the oven. Oh, and I've preheated my oven, and it's not fanned. I'm just doing it on a 170 degrees non-fan assisted. That's what all the recipes told me to do. And I'm just going to screw this back up together. Very rustic. And I'm going to make that a little bit thinner. It's a bit of faffing around and fussing, but the results are really good. And I've just realised that I've run out of eggs for my egg wash, but I'm going to use an egg white and hopefully that will do the trick. I've used so many eggs in my baking over the last few days. And there's the last one there on the side. Whoops. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, I'm going to grab one of those egg whites out. I think that looks pretty good. Just before I pop it in the oven, I've got a leftover egg white and I'm just going to wash the top of this pastry just to help make it shiny, and hopefully this will do the trick like a normal egg wash. Okay, now I'm going to bake this in the 170 degrees, no fan, for 50 minutes, and then I drop the temperature down to 160 for another 15. I've got it on a tray just to help me put it in and out in case the springform leaks. So let's pop this in, and I can't wait to show you. My timer's on. Stick around because I'm going to do a little show and tell afterwards. So we're back with our Italian Easter cake, and it's the next day, and I've let my cake cool overnight and it looks like that. Now when you first take it out of the oven, it kind of has a few cracks in it. Mine was quite raised and you freak out and you think, oh no, it looks weird. But that's part of the rustic charm, and as it cools down, it goes back into itself. And the taste is amazing, and if it doesn't look perfect, that's still fine. It doesn't spoil the taste. So now in front of you, I'm going to try and get it off this and pop it onto my plate. I'll remove it from the paper later. I just want to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to dust it with a little bit of icing sugar, which is very Italian, and I actually think they do it because it hides the blemishes if you've got any cracks or bits that don't look perfect. So dusting it with icing sugar. So then it looks like that. So I'm going to cut into it for you and we'll do a little taste test. Oh, and if you wanted to put it in the fridge overnight, if you're in a place where it's a bit humid, feel free to do that. Just remove it so it's room temperature before you eat it the next day. And I didn't get out my cake lifter. So let's just have a look at this. And so I'm going to come closer and talk to you at the camera. So here you have it. That's my Italian Easter cake. Pastiera Napoletana. So let's have a taste. That tastes delicious. For some reason it's quite soft today compared to the first time I made it, but it's like a soft cheesecake meets a rice pudding, and you've got the little bit of orangeness and the zest of the citrus. The spelt flour still tastes amazing. I think actually my base is better today than the time before. So let me know in the comments below what you think of my Italian Easter cake, and hit the thumbs up if you've liked my video. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting me. And if you're new here today, consider subscribing. And I'll pop a few links up above to a few other ideas for Easter, and maybe one or two of my other favorite Italian cakes. And I'll see you next time. Bye.